So we're in the Gemara today, towards the bottom of Tezayin Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom, Toshema. We're talking over here about the machlokes of Rav and Shmuel that we had on the previous Amud regarding the Mashkin Bebeis Mitbachaya. The Gemara there brought in a Braise that Rav Yosef ben Yezer testified that in the Beis HaMikdash, the Mashkin Beis Mitbachaya Dochen. The Mashkin is 100% pure, and the reason is because the whole Gzeira of Tumah and Mashkin is Midrabanan, and in the Beis HaMikdash they didn't apply that Gzeira. So Rav said that means that the Mashke there is completely Tahir. Shmuel says it's only Tahir that it can't transmit Tumah to others. Rav says no, it's completely Tahir. So we had a few questions on Rav, and this is the last question here that the Gemara asks on Rav's opinion. Toshema, it says in a pasuk, this is a pasuk in Chagai. Chagai lived in the beginning of the second Beis HaMikdash. And the Psukim there talk about how they came to the Beis HaMikdash, and he's encouraging Yidden to build the Beis HaMikdash and so on. And here, the Psukim speak about the fact that Eibusha tells Chagai that he should challenge the Kohanim and see if they still remember the halachas that they have to know when they come into the Beis HaMikdash. So he asks them questions about Tumah that would happen in the Beis HaMikdash to see if they know. So the question that he asked them was as follows. We'll see here in the Psukim that he's going to ask them 2 different questions. The first question he asked them was, Hein Yisa Ish B'sar Kodesh. If a person is carrying B'sar Kodesh, what does B'sar Kodesh refer to? So it's interesting. It actually refers to carrying a sheretz. The pasuk refers to a sheretz, carrying a piece of a sheretz as Kodesh. I mean, we know the word Kodesh means something that's separated. So that could be used in the positive, usually. Over here it's used in the negative. It's referring to a sheretz. So he's carrying a sheretz b'knaf bigdoi in his garment. V'noga b'knafay el alechem. And with his knaf, he touches a piece of bread. So as Rashi explains, when it says here with his knaf he touches a piece of bread, it actually means the sheretz itself. The pasuk refers to the sheretz as the kanaf. And the Mefarshim explained, the Pnei Yeshua explains, it doesn't say that the kohen, that the case of here is that the kohen touched with the sheretz the food, because a kohen, if he would see the sheretz, would be careful to get rid of the sheretz. He wouldn't allow the sheretz to touch the bread. So he's using an example of a case which would be common to happen, that the sheretz was inside his garment and he didn't notice the sheretz, and the sheretz touches the piece of bread. Therefore it calls it knafay. But knafay means the sheretz. So the sheretz touches the bread. So now what's the bread? The sheretz is a avatuma. What's the bread? A rishon l'tumah. Then ve'ela nozid. The bread touches a nozid, which is a stew, cooked food. So that's going to be now a sheni l'tumah. Ve'ela yayin. This nozid touched wine. The wine becomes a shlishi l'tumah. And ve'el shemen. And then the wine touched oil, which would become a revi l'tumah. Then it says ve'el kol machal, or any other food. So as Rashi says, when it says ve'el kol machal, it doesn't mean that the oil touched other foods. Ve'el kol machal should be read as or other foods. The wine touched or oil or other foods. Taisus actually asks on Rashi, why would we teach ve'el kol machal as or? And on all the other things in the pasuk, we don't say it means or. It means and it touched something else. So the Mefarshim say, the Pnei Yeshua says, that in all the other things in the pasuk, lechem, nozid, yayin, shemen, the pasuk spells out a particular thing, what we're talking about. When it says ve'al kol machal, it's using a more general term. So therefore we know that it's not talking about another particular thing that it touched. So we have 4 levels of tumah here, from Rishon to Revi. Hayiktosh, so the question that Chagai was asking the Kohanim is, the last thing, the shemen or the machal that got tameh, is that also going to be tameh? In other words, what he's asking them is, do you have a revi l'tumah by kachim? Vayanu HaKohanim, and the Kohanim answered, Vayomru loy, and they said, no, there's no revi l'tumah for kachim. V'amar Rav said about this, as the Gemara is going to quote soon and explain extensively, ishtabish kani. The Kohanim made a mistake. Why did they make a mistake? Because we know that when it comes to kachim, there is revi l'tumah by kachim. By truma, there's tumah only up to shlishi. By chulin, only up to sheni. So they made a mistake. So what's the question of the Gemara that's relevant here? This is Rav himself speaking here. And Rav holds that when it comes to anything that there's liquids, there is no tumah b'chlal. The beis mitbachaya, the mashkinar, there's no tumah. We're talking here about wine and about oil. If it's wine and oil, why is Rav asking why was he asking such a question whether it's tumah or not? There's no tumah b'chlal. Answers the Gemara, Mid Yutaima Elol Rav. You're asking this question according to Rav Rav mashki beis mit pechayetani. When Rav said that the mashkin, the liquids in the Beis HaMikdash are tahir, what is he referring to? Only the ones that are in the slaughterhouse of the Beis HaMikdash, in the place where they shech the karbanis. What is that referring to? As Rashi says, that we'll see soon in the Gemara, the blood and water. The place where they shech the karbanis, so what kind of liquids is there? The blood of the animals, and also water that they used to use to clean off and rinse off the behemoth. Only blood and water is tahir, but not anything else. There's other mashkin used in the Beis HaMikdash on the Mizbeach itself. In a carbon mincha, they had oil, they had the wine on the Mizbeach, and there was also the blood that they sprinkled on the Mizbeach. And once a year on Sukkot, there was the water that they poured on the Mizbeach. So on the Mizbeach itself, there were more mashkin. But in the Meis Bit Bechaya, there was only blood and water. Aval mashkin bei mid bechaya, the mashkin that were used by the Mizbeach, as I mentioned, which that would include oil and wine as well, metame. That's Tomei, that transmits Tomei, and therefore Chagai was asking his question regarding oil and wine, which is on the Mizbeach and would become Tomei in the Beis HaMikdash. Now the Gemara brings this question itself, that Chagai asked, and exactly what happened with the response of the Kohanim. Just a second. Okay. You can pick it up with Rav, if you can.
Oh, that's
I'm sorry about that, not the wrong one.
Here, this. Okay. Needs to go higher.
Thank you. Okay, it's good. Weiter. Gufe Rav Omar. Rav says a shtabish Kohani. The Kohanim made a mistake, as we just explained. Shmuel Omar lo yishtabish Kohani. No, the Kohanim gave the right answer. Asks the Gemara. Rav Omar shtabish Kohani. Rav says the Kohanim made a mistake with their response. That we understand. Revi v'kodesh bo minayu. His question of them was to see if they know the halacha that by kodesh, by kachim, you could have a tumah up to the V, and v'amru lei tar, and they got that wrong. They said that it's going to be tar. But a Shmuel, Shmuel said that the Kohanim did not make a mistake. What's the reason? They got it wrong. Answer is chamishi b'kodesh ba minayo. You have to read the pasuk differently. Really, he was asking them, could you have a level of tumah by kachim that goes until chamishi? V'amrulei tahir. And they responded tahir, and that's the right answer. So the Gemara will now explain, how do you see here in the pasuk that there's a chamishi of tumah that he was asking them about? According to Rav, we can see that he was talking about a revi l'tumah, because the pasuk mentions 4 different things that got tumah. Lechem, and then nazid, yayin, shemen. The 4 things that transmitted tumah one to another. According to Shmuel, where do you see in the pasuk that he was asking them about a tumah that goes to the level of a 5th thing that became tumah? Answers the Gemara, miksiv v'noga knofai. Does it say in the pasuk v'noga knofai, which would mean, again, as I mentioned before, when it says in the pasuk kanof refers to the sheretz. So does it say v'noga knofai, that the sheretz touched the bread? It says v'noga biknofai, that it touched bikna, something touched the sheretz. So what this hint? Why is there an extra base there? What this hints to is, besides the fact that the sheretz touched the bread, there was something else that touched the sheretz first. Naga biknofai, something touched the sheretz, and then it touched the bread. Naga biknofai ksiv bameh shenaga biknofai. There was something else there that the pasuk does not spell out explicitly that touched the sheretz, and then that touched the bread. So therefore, there was a 5th thing there. So the question that Chagai was asking the Kohanim was whether there's chamishi l'tumah by kachim, and they answered there isn't, it's toir, and they got the answer right. Tashema, so now the Gemara.
The garment touched before the sheretz?
The what?
The garment touched before the sheretz?
It's not necessarily the garment, it's something else. The Gemara doesn't say what it is, we don't know what it is. Something else touched the sheretz, and then that touched the bread. That's why it says beis. You could say it's the garment l'chayre, but yeah, that's okay. That's what it would look like. But the beis is hinted in the word biknofai, and the kanaf here refers to the sheretz. So I'm not sure. Okay, now as I mentioned, Chagai asked 2 questions to the Kohanim. Now the Gemara is going to see. Let's look at the second question he asked them, and from that we'll see. I'm going to get to the machlekes of Rav and Shmuel whether they made a mistake or not. Tashema, the next question he asked them, Vayoyim Chagai. Chagai asked them, Im yiga tmei nefesh b'choleila. Instead of the source of tumah being a sheretz, what would the halacha be if you have a tmei nefesh? Who's a tmei nefesh? A tmei nefesh is a ava tumah, right? As we learned that the tomei, the mace itself, is avi avos tumah, and the Tmei Nefesh is an Avatuma, just like a Sheretz. So the same exact thing. The Tmei Nefesh touched, like we said before, the whole Seder, the Lechem, the Nazir, the Yayin, and the Shemen. Hayitame. Will it become Tame? Will there be a Revi'il Tumah? That's what it seems like he's asking. The same question, the only difference is before he asked about a Sheretz and now about a Tmei Nefesh. Vayanu HaKayanim, and the Kayanim answer and they say, Vayomru, yes, Yitma. It will become Tame. So now they got it right. Now they said Revi'il Tumah, it becomes Tame. So the question is, here l'chayr everybody would agree they got it right. So b'shloim l'shmuel, it's understood according to Shmuel, they knew the halacha. So midahacha lo yishtabish, like here in the second question we asked them, we see they didn't make a mistake. They knew that there's a reveal of tumah by kachim. So hasam nami lo yishtabish. We're going to have to say that in the previous pasuk they knew the halacha as well, and they got it right. And over there he was asking them about a chamishi l'tumah, so they said it's tahir. Elul Rav, but according to Rav, why when he asked them the first time about a reveal l'tumah, they said that it's tahir. When he asked them a second time, and apparently he didn't in between let them know if they got it right or wrong. So the second time he asked them the question, lo yishtabish, over here they got it right. Answers the Gemara, Rav Nachman Rabba Baravua, Bekiyanein betumas meis. They knew the halacha of tumas meis. The second time he asked them, he was asking them about tumas meis. That they knew that there's a reveal of tumah. Ve'ein bekiyanein betumas sheretz. They did not know the halacha of tumas sheretz. They thought that there may be a distinction. B'chlal we know tumas meis is more stringent than tumas sheretz. There's a v'yavesa tumah. They thought that maybe by tumas meis, yes, there's a reveal of tumah, but not by tumas sheretz. That's the distinction. That's why by tumas sheretz they didn't get the answer right. Ravina says, Hasam revi and Hacha shlishi. The difference is that in the case of tumas sheretz, he was asking them about a reveal of tumah. Over here, by the tumas meis, the case wasn't a person that was an avatuma, a person that touched the mace that became avatuma. He was asking them about a mace itself. If there was a mace, a piece of a body of a mace itself that touches the lechem and then touches nazid and then touches yayin, if it's the mace himself, that's an avi avaisa tumah. So then it comes out that the shemen is not a revi l'tumah, it's a shlishi l'tumah. And that's why over there they said that they knew for sure would be tumah. So over here they knew that halacha, but revi l'tumah they made a mistake about. That's the difference. Tashema, let's look what it says afterwards. So after he asked them these two questions, what did Chagai say? Did he tell them? Did he accept their answer? Did he make a mistake? Did he not? So it says l'chayda very clearly in the pasuk, Vayan Chagai vayoyme. Here, this people, this nation, the Kayanim, Lefanai Nu'um Hashem v'Goymer. What does it say in the continuation of the pasuk? He says to them, if you look in Ois Gimel on the side of the Gemara, these people are going to bring karbanos that's going to be tomei. So he's answering them and saying, you made a mistake, you didn't answer right. So it's clearly like Rav said, that they did make a mistake. So according to Rav, we understand why he's telling them that it's Tameh. Why is he telling them that what they're going to bring is Tameh? They got both answers right according to Shmuel. Answers the Gemara, it's mui kametame. You don't have to read the pasuk as a statement that he's sort of complimenting them, or sorry, again, he's criticizing them. He's actually wondering. He's saying, these people, it's mui kametame. He's wondering and saying that are these people going to bring anything that's tameh? In other words, he's actually complimenting them. He's saying that they know the halachas, so if the Eibush is concerned that these people forgot their halachas over the 70 years in Galos and they're going to come to the Beis HaMikdash and make things tameh, he's saying to them, are you concerned that the people of this nation will make a carbon tameh? That's how you read the pasuk, as a wonder. That's one pshat. Another pshat is, but the Gemara asks on this, the language of the pasuk does not sound like he's saying it as a wonder. He says, and then it says, when you use this term, this is the nation, this is their actions, it doesn't seem like he's saying it as a wonder. So it's not, the Gemara doesn't accept this pshat over here. Ravashi says a different pshat. It's referring to the future. Because in the future, towards the end of the second Beis HaMikdash, so the Yidden did Avedas then. Chagai is talking about the future, that then the Eibusha will consider it as if they're bringing karbanos betuma because of their Avedas. But at this time, they knew the halachas, they brought it betara, and even could be later, they were also bringing it betara. They just had other Avedas, and it's considered as if they're bringing their carbon betuma. So it's going on the future, not on the present. Now the Gemara comes back to the machlokes that we brought up before, that there's two ways how to learn this halacha that we brought before, that in the Beis HaMikdash, Chachamim suspended their gzeira of Tumah. Right? So the Gemara before was talking about this whole thing of Chagai, and the Gemara explained that Rav said, Beis mitpachaya, only the liquids, oil and, blood and water is where Chachamim suspended their gzeira. Not benegea to oil and wine, which would be called Bei mitbachaya, the liquids that are actually brought on the Mizbeach itself. So here the Gemara is going to bring this machlokes itself. But before I go weiter, let me just point out an interesting thing that Rashi points out before. From this Gemara you see that you have to say that in the pasuk of Chagai, we're talking about a gzeira midrabanan that was instituted then regarding these mashkin. And the reason is because Chagai was already the beginning of Anshe Knesset Agdala. If we're talking over here about mashkin that are tomei min atayra, and Chagai was testing them to see whether they know the halacha of the isra of the tumah of mashkin min atayra, so then how can we say that that this mashkin which is tomei min atayra, that in the Beis HaMikdash it's not tomei? If it's tomei min atayra, Chachamim can't suspend such a gzeira, whether in the Beis mitbachaya or mid bachaya by the Mizbeach, it's tomei min atayra. The fact that we're saying here that Chagai is testing them regarding this mashkin, and we're making the distinction that it depends which mashkin. The mashkin on the Mizbeach is tamei. The mashkin by the slaughterhouse where they're shechting the karbanis is not tamei. It means that we're talking over here about a mashkin which is only tamei with the rabbanon. And even in the times of Chagai, that's when this gzeira was instituted, because he was at the beginning of the time of Anshe Knesset Agdala. Okay, so now the Gemara brings the machlokes exactly which mashkin are included in this. Rav Tani, Rav learned in the Braise, Mashki Beis Mitpachaya. That Yosef ben Yoyezer testified that the mashkin is tahir, it refers to the mashkin that are bebei mitbachaya. What does that include? Blood and water by the slaughterhouse. Levi Tana mashke bei mitbachaya. Levi says, no, this includes more. It refers also to the mashkin that was used in the Mizbeach, which includes oil and wine. So now the Gemara explains, going back to the pasuk before, when Chagai was testing the Kohanim. The Levi, according to Levi, that says that the mashke in Bei Midbachaya, which would include even oil and wine, is also tahir. So now the question becomes, how is Chagai testing them regarding oil and wine? Oil and wine is going to be totally tahir according to Levi. Says the Gemara, Levi, ha niche isvire le kishmuel. It's going to be understood how Chagai is testing them regarding oil and wine if he holds like Shmuel on the previous Amud, or in the previous Blat. What did Shmuel say there? The Amar, Dachen Milatame Tumas Achedim. When we say that the mashkin in the Beis HaMikdash is tired, it doesn't mean it's completely tired. It means that it's tired, that it can't transmit tumah to others. Avol Tumas Atzmon Yesh Lehen. But a tumah for itself, it does become tumah. So therefore, what was Chagai testing them? Mishkachas law, the case over here is the Nagi Kulon Birishayim. He was testing them where the shadets, or the shadets all touched the things that are mentioned in the pasuk. How did we learn the pasuk before? The shadets touched the bread, then the bread touched something else, and each one transmitted tumah to the next thing. But according to Levi, that's not what happened. There's no transmission of tumah, even regarding mashke bebei midbachaya. So the oil and the wine can't transmit tumah to each other. So what was Levi testing them? Chagai. What was Chagai testing them? The shadetz itself touched the bread, it touched the nazid, other food, it touched wine, it touched oil. And he was asking them the question whether the shadetz is going to make it tummy or not. It can't transmit tummy, but he was asking them, will it become tummy? That was the question he was asking them. And what did they answer? They answered, it doesn't transmit tummy, right? So let's see inside of here. So the only way it makes sense to say that he was asking them about this, even though mashke bebei midbachaya is toir, is because he was asking them about the rishon l'tumah, or the shadetz actually, touching it itself, and therefore, even though it doesn't transmit tumah, but it could become tumah, like the opinion of Shmuel. Eli savar like Rav, but if he holds like Rav, the omer dochin mamish, Rav says that the mashkin in the Beis HaMikdash, that's not tomei, it's totally toir. So then how is Chagai asking them anything about this? It's totally toir. Al karchach kishmuel svirle. So he holds like Shmuel that says that it can't transmit tumah, but it becomes tumah itself. This is according to Levi. Now the Gemara says according to Shmuel. Shmuel, going back to what we said before, according to Shmuel. So if you remember, what did we just say? Shmuel says that when he was asking them in the first pasuk, the first question that he was asking them, and they said that it's Tahir, Shmuel says they gave the right answer. Why did they give the right answer? Because he was asking them about a Chamishi L'Tumah. If it would have been a Revi L'Tumah, it would have been Tameh. He was asking them about a Chamishi L'Tumah, and they gave the right answer to say that it's Tahir. So Shmuel, this that Shmuel said before that they gave the right answer because it was a Chamishi L'Tumah, Honiche Isava L'Karav. So this makes sense. If Shmuel is going to hold like Rav, the Tani, Mashke, Beis, Mid B'chaya. And Rav says that even the Mashkin, that only the Mashkin, Beis, Mid B'chaya, which is blood and water. Over there I say that Chacham suspended their Gzeira. Aval Mashki, Bei, Mid B'chaya, but the Mashki on the Mizbeach, which includes oil and wine, that's something that does become Tameh, and it could transmit Tameh as well. Nami mitamu, and therefore it becomes Tameh and transmits Tameh as well. So therefore Shmuel said, Revi hu deloi ovid. It did not. Again, Revi hu deloi ovid chamishi. The Revi will not transmit Tameh to a chamishi. Hashlishi ovid Revi, but the shlishi will transmit Tameh to Revi. So if we're talking about the mashkin that's on the Mizbeach, over here it could transmit Tumah. So if Shmuel is going to hold like Rav in this machlokes between Rav and Levi, the machlokes between Rav and Levi was whether it's referring to the mashkin on the Mizbeach or it's only referring to the mashkin where they slaughtered the karbanis. If over here is going to hold like Rav, that only the mashkin where they slaughtered the karbanis, the blood and the water, they suspended the Tumah. But the mashkin on the Mizbeach could transmit Tumah, so we understand why Shmuel was saying that there's a Revi L'Tumah, because it could transmit Tumah. Eli Savalaka Levi, the Tani Mashke Bei Mid B'chaya, but if he holds like Levi, that the Mashke Bei Mid B'chaya was where the Chacham suspended their Gzeira of Tumah, my Iriya Revi D'Le'avat Chamishi. Why would Shmuel say that a Revi can't make a Chamishi, and therefore the Kainim said it's Tahir? Shmuel holds that Chachamim suspended their Gzeira of Tumah, that it could become Tumah itself, but it can't transmit any Tumah at all. So there's no Sheni and there's no Shlishi either. There could only be a Rishain. So in this machlekes, regarding whether your guide is Bei Mid B'chaya or Bei Mid B'chaya, with a test, he holds like Levi. That he holds like Rav, that is. Again, Shmuel holds like Rav in this detail of the machlekes between Rav and Levi, that only when they get to Mashke Bei Mid B'chaya that they suspend their Gzeira, but not Mashke Bei Mid B'chaya, the Mashkin on the Mizbeach, it could transmit Tumah. Okay, we're talking over here about three different machlekes that the Gemara is bringing together. There's one machlekes when they suspended the Tumah in the Beis HaMikdash and the Mashkin. Did they totally suspend it or only for transmitting Tumah? The second machlokes we have is the Kayanim and the Psukim here. Did the Kayanim make a mistake? Did they not make a mistake? The third machlokes we have over here regarding which mashkin in the Beis HaMikdash did they suspend the Tumah? The mashkin of the place where they slaughter the karbanis, which only is blood and water, or the mashkin even on the Mizbeach, which includes even oil and wine. That's the three machlokes that the Gemara is explaining here, how they fit together. Now coming back, based on what it says here in the Gemara, to the question I mentioned yesterday regarding Chanukah, where the oil became tameh and they couldn't light the menorah. So I mentioned the Mefarshim asked the question that it says over here that the mashkin in the Beis HaMikdash, Chachamim suspended their Gzeira of mashkin. So why was there an issue to use the oil for the menorah? This is a question that some Mefarshim ask. But if you learn here the cheshbon of the Gemara, it's really not a question at all, according to any opinion you say over here. The opinion that says that they only suspended their Gzeira regarding blood and water, so that it wasn't suspended regarding oil and wine. Only Mashke Bei Mid B'chaya, where they slaughtered the karbanis, but the oil does become tameh. Even according to the opinion that says that they suspended their Gzeira regarding the oil and the wine that's brought on the Mizbeach, Bei Mid B'chaya, however, that's only not to transmit Tumah. That's what the Gemara explains. But when you get to becoming tameh itself, it will become tameh itself. And the proof is very simple. The pasuk in Chagai. It's a beferish pasuk in Chagai that it was testing the Kayanim regarding Tumah and oil and wine. So you have to say that oil could become Tumah itself. So therefore, the Chayre, this whole question is B'chlal not a question. It's a pele even that some Achreinim asked this question. Elamai, it would be only a Tumah midrabanan. As I pointed out, Rashi says, we're not talking about a Tumah minatayra, only Tumah midrabanan. So maybe you could ask the question by the Nes Chanukah, since it was only Tumah midrabanan, but minatayra, the oil was Tair, so they could have used the Tumah oil midrabanan to light the menorah with it. Because minatayra, it's Tair, so they can use it. So then there's the famous answer that says that the Eibishter made the nest, that they should be able to do the nest perfectly without any tumah whatsoever, not even a tumah midrabanan. But even if the question is a question, there's one other answer I'll mention. There's a lot of answers I saw to this. Another answer that's given is that when the Yevonim came to the Beis HaMikdash, they breached the walls of the Beis HaMikdash, and that removes the status of Kedusha that the place has. There's an expression the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, Bo Pritzim v'Chilalua, that when you come and you breach the wall, so then the place doesn't have its Kedusha anymore. So whatever status the Mashkin has in the Beis HaMikdash does not apply anymore, because they breached the wall. So even whatever it explains here regarding the Mashkin and the Beis HaMikdash in the time of the Gzeira, when the wall was breached, it doesn't apply. But either way, as I pointed out, based on the whole cheshbon of the Gemara, it's not a question. Sagt the Gemara weiter, Tanya kavase de Rav, Tanya kavase de Levi. There's a clear brayse that says like Rav, and there's a clear brayse that says like Levi. Tanya kavase de Levi, in one brayse it says like Levi, that Chachamim suspended their Gzeira for all the mashkin, even the ones that are brought in the Mizbeach, Hadam, Va'ayayim, Va'ashemen, Va'amashkin. So it includes all of them. Mashki Beimid B'chaya. And it clearly says, the mashkin that are brought in the Mizbeach, Shenitmu B'fnim, if it became tummy inside the Azara, V'tziyan L'chutz, and then you took them outside, Tahayrin. It'll all be Tahir. Even though now you took them outside, it doesn't change its status. It's still going to be Tahir. Nitmu bachotz, any of these mashkin that became tamei, that is, on the outside, v'chnisam b'fnim, and you brought them inside the Beis HaMikdash, tmein, it becomes tamei. It remains tamei, that is. Once it became tamei outside, it remains tamei. Heini, is this the case? V'ha'amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, what Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, mashki beimid b'chaya, when it says that the mashkin of the Mizbeach, loy omru dochen, it's not said that it's tahir ela b'mekayma, only when it's inside in its place. My love, what did he mean to say? Lav lemute nitmu b'fnim v'tziyan l'chutz. This comes to exclude that if it was inside, and then you carried it outside, once you take it outside, now retroactively it becomes tamei. Only while it's inside, the Chacham suspend that tumah. The moment you take it outside, it becomes tamei retroactively. Lloyd says the Gemara, that's not what he meant to say. Lemute nitmu b'chutz v'chnisam b'fnim. What he's coming to exclude is if it became tumah outside and then you brought it inside. So the tumah that took effect when it's outside is not removed even after you bring it inside. But the Gemara interjects and asks, "But b'habim kaiman kamar?" He says only in its place. Only in its place does it become tumah. It's mashma that once you take it out, again, only in its place do we say that it's not tumah. And once you take it out, it does become tumah. Answers the Gemara, Hachi Kama. The way you have to read what he wrote, what he said is, it only remains tahir if it became tahir in the place inside where it's tahir. But if it became tahir outside, tamei outside, once it comes inside, it will be tamei. Ashi explains that the one that asked the question interjected in the middle of the answer here, because this is really what he meant to say in the beginning, that you have to read the words of Rabbi Shua ben Levi, that it was nitmu b'mekayman, then it remains tired and doesn't become tummy when you go outside. So here you have a clear brayso like Levi. Tanya kavase de Rav, another brayso is like Rav, hadam va'mayim, only blood and water, mashki beibs mit b'chaya, which is the mashkin of the place where they slaughter the karbanis. Shenitmu, they become tamei, bein b'kelim, whether the water became tamei in a keli, bein b'karka, whether the water is still on the ground, doesn't make a difference, tahayrim. The mashkin of the Beis HaMikdash is going to be tahir. Rab Shimon argues with this whole entire thing and says, the kelim tmein, the mashkin, if they're in kelim, they're going to be tamei. The karka, if the mashkin is on the ground, then tahayrim, then it's going to be tahir. What's the basis of Rab Shimon's opinion? So Rashi here explains that Rab Shimon, we had it before on the beginning of Daf Tazayin, Rab Shimon holds the tumah of mashkin is minat Torah. So therefore Chachamim are not suspending their gzeira in the Beis HaMikdash. The mashkin of kelim is totally going to be tamei, even in the Beis HaMikdash. Now, what does Rab Shimon mean to say that the karka is going to be tahirin? If mashkin is tamei minat Torah, why the karka is a tahir? So Rashi explains what we're talking about over here, mashkin that's in the karka. Let's say it rained in the Azara of the Beis HaMikdash, and you have a little puddle of water on the ground in the Azara. That puddle of water is like a little mikveh. What's this? The halach is water of a mikveh does not become tamei, but it has to have enough water to be a mikveh. So here's the thing: there's two different shiurim for a mikveh. The shir minat Torah for a mikveh is to have a tiny amount of water, a revius of water. The shir of a mikveh minat Torah is minat midrabana, that is how large? 40 saw. So what we're talking about over here is mashkin bekarka, is when you have water that's in the ground of the Beis HaMikdash, That's enough of a revius. So minat Torah, it's a mikveh. With the Rabbanon, it's not a mikveh because it doesn't have the amount of 40 sach. Chachamim increase the amount of a mikveh. So therefore, this mashkin is only tamei with the Rabbanon. Oh, it's only tamei with the Rabbanon. Chachamim suspended their gzeira with the Rabbanon of mashkin in the Beis Hamikdash. So according to, that's the hashbah of Rav Shimon here saying, B'kelim tmeim, mashkin and kelim is mashkin that's tamei minat Torah, so therefore it's tamei even in the Beis Hamikdash. But b'karka, if it's a revius and not 40 saw, so it's only tamei midrabanan, so therefore they suspended their tameh.
This is like this is rainwater, or
yeah. Look, I'm just saying, practically speaking,
or
we're probably talking
any
about
water.
a mikveh has to be a kosher mikveh, so we're talking about rainwater and dazara. Now the Gemara brings another pshat b'negei to the whole subject we spoke about it. The premise of everything we spoke about here was that the only way Chachamim could suspend their gzeira in the Beis Hamikdash is because the tumah of mashkin in the first place is only midrabanan. But now the Gemara brings another opinion that says no, even if the tumah of mashkin is minat Torah, there's no tumah of the mashkin in the Beis Hamikdash. Even if you say that the tumah of mashkin is minat Torah, mashki beis mit b'chaya, the tumah of mashkin in the Beis Hamikdash, hilchase gemirila, it's a halacha l'moshe misinai that there is no tumah there. Halacha l'moshe misinai. And the interesting thing is, we paskin like this opinion of Rav Papa. The Gemara is going to ask now two strong questions on Rav Papa, but this is the way that Rambam paskins. The tumah of mashkin is minat Torah, and in the beis mit b'chaya, it's halacha l'moshe misinai that it's not tamei. So he asks us a question. Going back to the brayso that we learned in the previous daf, what did Rabbi Lazar say? I'll prove to you that the tumah of mashkin is midrabanan. Ain't tumah of mashkin kol iker. Minat Torah, there's no tumah for mashkin. How do I know? Teida sharei heyid Yosef ben Yezer ish tzreida mashkin beis mit b'chaya dochin. Because Yosef ben Yezer ish tzreida said that in the Beis Hamikdash it's toir. How could it be toir in the Beis Hamikdash if it's a tumah minat Torah? If it's a tumah midrabanan, Chacham suspend their gzeira. But not if it's a tumah minat Torah. It says the Gemara, but v'i hilchase gemirila. Rav Papa is saying that there's a halacha l'moshe misinai. So mi gamrina mina. How could you prove it from this? It could be tumah minat Torah, but in the Beis Hamikdash there's a halacha l'moshe misinai. So what was the raya that he brought from this? That's one question. Another question. Omer Ravina Ravashi. Oh, Rab Shimon the Omar. Tumas mashkin da'iraisa. Rab Shimon is the one that holds that Tumas mashkin is minat Torah. The Tanya, Rab Yosef, Rab Shimon Oimrim. As we reported before the Brayse, Rab Yosef and Rab Shimon both say, L'kelim, when you have mashkin that are in kelim, to hidden. Sorry, again, let's read that again. The tumah of mashkin is minat Torah, and therefore if you have a suffix whether the mashkin touched kelim, it's going to be tohir. Lo-eichlin, if you have a suffix whether the mashkin touched eichlin, it's going to be tamei. So we see that mashkin is tamei and it could be metama eichlin. The distinction between whether it touched kelim or touched eichlin is going to be in the next plot. We'll learn in Mitzvah Shem. But the point is, we see that Rab Shimon holds that the tumah of mashkin is minat Torah. And v'hacha ka'omer Rab Shimon. And here Rab Shimon is making a distinction. B'kelim tmeim, the mashkin found in the Beis Hamikdash and a keli is going to be tamei. The karka, but if it's on the ground, like a mikveh, tahirin, then it's going to be toir. Why is he making this distinction? So I explained before, the mashkin that's found in the ground, we're talking about the mashkin that's not a mikveh midrabanan, and that's mashkin that's tamei midrabanan. But v'i hilchasihi, if what Rab Shimon is saying is a halacha l'moshe misinai, if Rav Papa is saying that the fact that there's no tumah for mashkin in the Beis Hamikdash is a halacha l'moshe misinai, ma'li b'kelim, ma'li b'karka, what difference should it make? Whether it's b'kelim, whether it's b'karka, it should always be halacha l'moshe misinai that any mashkin in the Beis Hamikdash is going to be tar. Kasher. Both of these questions remain a question. So now the Gemara explains the point that I said before regarding Rab Shimon. Amar Rav Papa, Hada Amrit, B'karka Tahirin. This that Rab Shimon says that liquid that's on the ground in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Azara, is going to be Tahir, Loishanu Elamayim. That was referring to water. Aval Dam, Loy. But regarding blood, doesn't make a difference which blood it is, whether it's the blood in a keli or the blood that's on the ground. Umayim Nami Loyamaran, the distinction that he made regarding water, it's only said, Ela Dahaviris, the Chazi Lahatpil. That's only when we're talking about a puddle of water on the ground that was a revius. So that's enough of an amount that minat Torah, it's going to be a good mikveh. The Chazi Lahatpil be Machtem V'tzinoidis. You could toivel in it, a pin, a needle, little things in it. But But if this puddle of water is less than a revius, then it's not a mikveh, even min atayra, it's main, so then it's going to be tamei. It's like water that's inside a keli, that there's no reason why it shouldn't be tamei, even min atayra. Now the Gemara comes back, the last thing for today, when you get to Rabbi Yehuda. What did we learn before according to Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda held that the mashkin is tamei min atayra, and it makes everything tamei. It transmits tumah to anything. Rabbi Yehuda was the most machmer. Rabbi Yehuda, we learned before, Rabbi Yehuda, oimer lakoil tamei. Rabbi Yehuda says mashkin is tamei and it transmits tumah to anything. The memory of the Savar Rabbi Yehuda tumas mashkin l'tamei tumas kalim dairaisa. Does Rabbi Yehuda hold that mashkin is tamei and it could transmit tumah to anything, to other foods, to kalim as well? V'atanan or v'hatanya, we learned it says kol kalim, any kind of vessels that you have. Sheyesh len achirayim v'toich. They have an exterior and an interior. And the point is that you could use the exterior and you could use the interior. It has two uses. Kagaina karim, pillows, ksasais, blankets, sakin, sacks, hamartzufin, leather sacks. Nitma toichai, if it became tamei, it came in contact with tumah on the inside. So nitma gabai. So the exterior becomes tamei as well. Nitma gabai, but if the interior became tamei, the exterior became tamei, loy nitma toichai. The interior does not become tamei. This is the Tanakama over here. So we're talking about what? When it became Tomei, the Tumah is not complete. It depends if it's inside, outside. Rabbi Yehuda says there's a difference. This distinction that if it became Tomei on the outside, it does not become Tomei on the inside, that's only regarding the Tumah of Mashkin. But if it became Tomei from a Sheretz, there's no difference. Nitme toichai, nitbe gabai. If it became tummy on the inside, it's tummy on the outside as well. Nitbe gabai, nitbe toichai. Wherever the sheretz touches in this keli, it becomes tummy. So Rabbi Yehuda is making a distinction between a sheretz and mashkin. What's the reason for the distinction? If mashkin, which is tummy, is a source of tumah, just like a sheretz, what's the reason for this distinction? Why would we make a difference between if the source of tumah comes from a sheretz or from mashkin? So the Gemara says, you're right. We see here clearly that Rabbi Yehuda holds as a difference. Chaza by Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda had charat of what he said before, and mashkin is only tamei midrabanan. And as Rashi points out, Chachama wanted to make a distinction to show the leniency of the tumah of mashkin, that it's only midrabanan. So therefore they said this leniency, that if it touches on the outside, it doesn't become tamei on the inside. Not like a sheretz where it always becomes tamei inside and outside. So Rabbi Yehuda had charata. Ravina says, no, lo'elam lo'i hodar. He did not have charata. Ha b'mashkin habon machmas yadayim. This braise, Rabbi Yehuda was speaking about mashkin that became tamei from yadayim, which is a tumah midarabanan. So the source of the tumah that the mashkin itself became tamei from was a tumah midarabanan. That's why the mashkin is midarabanan. Ha b'mashkin, says the Gemara. If so, ha b'mashkin abal machmas sheretz. Again, ha b'mashkin abal machmas sheretz. Before, when Rabbi Yehuda said that mashkin is tamei min atayra, that's the mashkin that became tamei from a sheretz, and therefore it's tamei min atayra. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, I hachi adatani b'med dvarim amurim shenitmu machmas mashkin. Rabbi Yehuda here makes a distinction in this brayse between the tumah that comes from mashkin and the tumah that comes from a sheretz. Why does he have to distinguish between mashkin and a sheretz? Lifleik v'lisni b'dida. He can make a distinction regarding the tumah of mashkin itself. Mashkin that became tumah from yadayim, which is a tumah midarabanan. So then there's a distinction in the level of the tumah, in the exterior and the interior. But if it's mashkin that became tumah from a sheretz and it's tumah min atayre, there's no distinction. It becomes totally tumah. The answer is, like we said before, Chaza by Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda retracted the opinion that he said before, and he holds that mashkin is only tamei midrabanan, not min atayra.